I was a construction tycoon who built skyscrapers, but in my own home, I was treated like expired furniture by the son I had given everything to. One night, I woke up and overheard a conversation that stopped my heart. My son and his wife weren't just planning to steal my fortune, they were finalizing the timeline for my accidental death. I didn't confront them. I climbed out a window into the rain and used a secret weapon my late wife left me to hire the most ruthless lawyer in Atlanta. The next morning, while my son tried to pay for a celebratory brunch, his credit cards declined. Then the police arrived, not to find a missing person, but to arrest a conspirator. What happened next is a brutal lesson about the difference between raising a child and financing a parasite. Before I tell you exactly what my wife left me in that box, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and please like if you believe that true legacy is built, not bought. I did it all for my family. I did it for Eleanor, and I did it for our son, Jamal. That was my fatal mistake. I wanted Jamal to have the childhood I never had. I gave him the best private schools, the sports cars at 16, the fully paid college tuition. I thought I was giving him a head start, but I was actually crippling him. I raised a man who thought the world owed him a living just because his last name was Vance. When Eleanor passed away from ovarian cancer 4 years ago, the house became a tomb. It was too big, too quiet. Jamal and his wife Vanessa insisted I move into the guest wing of the new estate I had bought for them as a wedding gift. They said they didn't want me to be lonely. They said they wanted the grandkids, Jordan and Maya, to be close to their grandfather. I believed them. I was grieving, and grief makes you blind. At first, it was small things. Vanessa would ask for money for groceries, then for a vacation, then for a new renovation. Jamal stopped coming to the office. He said he was managing the investments from home. I let it slide because I was tired. But the atmosphere in the house changed. They stopped inviting me to dinner. They stopped knocking before entering my room. They started talking about me in the third person when I was sitting right there, as if I were a piece of furniture that had stayed past its expiration date. The night I escaped, I woke up at 2 in the morning with a dry throat. I went downstairs to the kitchen to get a glass of water. The house was dark, but I saw a light coming from the study. The door was cracked open. I heard voices. It was Jamal and Vanessa. They were on a video call. I stopped. Something in their tone made my stomach turn. I crept closer to the door, standing on the cold marble floor in my socks. I heard a man's voice on the speakerphone. It was not a voice I recognized. He said, "The papers are ready for tomorrow morning. We have the doctor on board. He will testify that Robert is suffering from advanced dementia and is a danger to himself." My heart hammered against my ribs. Dementia. I was as sharp as the day I started my company. I managed complex contracts every day. Then I heard Vanessa speak. She said, "Are you sure this will give us full control of the accounts? We need access to the offshore trust immediately. My brother Terrence needs his cut for setting this up." Terrence, her brother, a man who had been in and out of prison for fraud. He was involved in this. Then came the voice that broke me. "My son, Jamal." He said, "Do it. Dad is just a burden now anyway. He is holding us back. Once we have the conservatorship, we will move him to that facility in Stone Mountain. It is cheap, but it is secure. He won't be able to leave." I felt like I had been punched in the chest. My son was not just stealing from me. He was planning to lock me away. He was planning to erase me. I backed away from the door, trembling. I needed to get out. I needed to leave right then. I ran softly back to my room. I went to the nightstand to get my wallet. It was gone. I checked the dresser. Gone. I checked the safe in the closet where I kept my passport and deeds. The combination had been changed. They had already stripped me. They had taken my identity before they even took my freedom. Panic began to rise in my throat. I had no cash. I had no ID. I had no car keys. If I tried to take a car, the alarm would wake them. I was trapped. Then I remembered the box. When Eleanor died, I packed her personal things in a cardboard box and shoved it to the very back of the top shelf in the closet. I could not bear to look at them. I grabbed a chair and climbed up. I pulled the box down, dust falling into my eyes. I tore it open. Inside was her perfume, her scarf, and her old brown leather clutch. My hands shook as I opened the clasp. Inside, tucked in a side pocket, was a bank card. It was a debit card for a separate account she maintained. I didn't know if it was active. I didn't know if it had a single dollar on it, but it was the only weapon I had left. I shoved the card into my pocket. That would look suspicious if they saw me on the cameras. I put on my coat and my shoes. I opened the window that led to the trellis on the side of the house. I was 68 years old, but fear gave me the agility of a young man. I climbed down into the garden. The rain was falling hard, a cold Atlanta rain that soaked me to the bone in seconds. I did not look back at the life I had built. I walked into the darkness, a king who had become a beggar, praying that the plastic card in my pocket would save my life. I walked for what felt like hours. The rain masked my tears, but it could not hide the shivering of my body. My expensive Italian loafers were ruined in the mud, but I did not care. I just kept moving, one foot in front of the other, away from the people who wanted to bury me alive. I reached the outskirts of downtown Atlanta around 3 in the morning. The city was asleep. The towering skyscrapers I had helped build looked down on me like silent giants. I felt small. I felt invisible. I was Robert Vance, the tycoon, but tonight I was just a wet old man shivering on a corner. I saw the glowing blue sign of a bank branch down the street. It was like a lighthouse in a storm. I moved toward it, my heart pounding against my ribs. I entered the small glass vestibule. The air conditioning hit me and made me shake even harder. I stood in front of the ATM. The machine hummed a low electronic sound that seemed deafening in the silence. I took Eleanor's card out of my pocket. It was dry. The leather clutch had protected it. I stared at the plastic rectangle. It was my only lifeline. If this did not work, I was dead. I inserted the card. The machine swallowed it. The screen lit up. "Please enter your PIN." I froze. I stared at the blinking cursor. Eleanor never told me the PIN. We shared everything, but we kept our personal spending separate to surprise each other with gifts. I had no idea what 4 numbers she had chosen. I took a deep breath. I had to guess. I had 3 tries before the machine ate the card and left me stranded. I thought of the most obvious date, our wedding anniversary, June 12th, 0612. My trembling finger pressed the buttons. I waited. The screen thought for a second. Incorrect PIN. 2 attempts remaining. Sweat mixed with the rain on my forehead. I closed my eyes. Think, Robert, think. What else would she use? I thought of Jamal. She loved that boy more than life itself. She forgave him every mistake. She spoiled him just like I did. Maybe she used his birthday. October 4th, 1004. I pressed the keys. I held my breath. The machine whirred. Incorrect PIN. 1 attempt remaining. Card will be retained if next entry is invalid. I felt the floor drop out from under me. My knees buckled, and I had to lean against the machine to keep from falling. This was it. 1 chance. 1 single chance between freedom and the nursing home. I closed my eyes and tried to summon Eleanor's face. I tried to hear her voice. What mattered to her? What was the day she always said was the true beginning of our lives? It wasn't our wedding. It wasn't the birth of our son. It was the day I bought my first beat-up truck. The day Vance Construction was born. She always said that was the day we took control of our destiny. April 1st, 0401. I opened my eyes. My hand was shaking so bad I almost missed the keys. 0401. I pressed enter. I squeezed my eyes shut. I could not watch. The machine beeped. A cheerful sound. I opened my eyes. Welcome, Eleanor. I let out a sob that sounded more like a choke. It worked. She was still with me. She was still guiding me. I selected the option to check the balance. I expected to see a few $100s, maybe 1,000 if I was lucky, just enough for a bus ticket and a meal. The numbers appeared on the screen. I blinked. I wiped the water from my eyes and looked again. $650,000. I gasped. I leaned closer to the screen. It was real. Over $500,000 sitting in an account I never knew existed. Where did she get this? How did she save this much? A wave of confusion hit me, but it was quickly replaced by relief. Sweet, overwhelming relief. I quickly withdrew $500 in cash. The machine spit out the crisp $20 bills. I grabbed them like they were gold. I grabbed the receipt. I ejected the card and kissed it before putting it back in the leather clutch deep in my pocket. I stepped back out into the rain, but the cold didn't bother me anymore. I had armor now. I had resources. But then a thought struck me cold. My phone. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my smartphone. It was sleek and expensive. Jamal had bought it for me last Christmas. He had set it up. He had installed the apps. He had turned on the location sharing so the grandkids could see where Grandpa was. That is what he said. Lies. All lies. He was tracking me. He probably knew exactly where I was standing right now. I looked around. I saw a storm drain near the curb. Water was rushing into it, carrying trash and debris. I walked over to it. I looked at the phone one last time. I saw a notification pop up on the screen. 5 missed calls from Jamal. I did not answer. I dropped the phone into the dark, gaping mouth of the sewer. I watched it disappear into the black water. I was a ghost now. I walked 2 blocks to a motel with a flickering neon sign. It was the kind of place I would never have set foot in during my former life. The kind of place where people rented rooms by the hour. I walked up to the bulletproof glass window. The clerk looked at me with suspicion. I was a well-dressed old man, soaking wet at 4 a.m. I slid 3 $20 bills under the glass. "I need a room," I said. "No ID, just for the night." The clerk looked at the money. He looked at me. He didn't ask questions. He slid a key across the counter. "Room 104. I took the key. I walked to the room, which smelled of stale cigarettes and cheap cleaner. I locked the door. I put the chair under the doorknob just like I used to do in the rough neighborhoods when I was young. I sat on the edge of the sagging bed. I took out the cash and the card. I laid them on the nightstand. I was safe for tonight. But I knew the sun was coming up soon. And when it did, Jamal would realize I was gone. He would realize his plan had failed. He would come for me with everything he had. But he did not know about this card. He did not know I had $500,000 and 40 years of rage fueling me. I lay back on the bed and stared at the water stains on the ceiling. I did not sleep. I plotted. I was Robert Vance. I had built skyscrapers from mud, and I was going to tear my son's world down brick by brick. The sun rose over Atlanta like a bruise, purple and swollen. I washed my face in the cracked sink of the motel room, trying to scrub away the shame of the night before. I looked in the mirror and saw a stranger. My eyes were bloodshot. My silver stubble was thick. My expensive suit was wrinkled and stained with the red Georgia clay. I looked like a man who had lost everything, which is exactly what my son wanted the world to believe. I waited until 9 o'clock when the banks opened. I did not go to a small branch. I went to the headquarters of First National, a glass tower downtown that I had actually poured the foundation for 20 years ago. I walked through the revolving doors with my head held high, ignoring the stares of the people in tailored suits. The security guard, a burly man with a headset, took a step toward me. He saw a homeless man wandering into a place of business. I saw the judgment in his eyes. He was about to ask me to leave, to tell me the shelter was 3 blocks down. I did not give him the chance. I walked straight to the customer service desk. There was a young woman behind the counter. Her name tag read Sarah. She looked at my fraying collar. She looked at the mud on my expensive leather shoes. She offered a tight, polite smile that did not reach her eyes. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked. Her tone suggested she expected me to ask for loose change. I did not say a word. I reached into my pocket and placed the brown leather clutch on the cold marble counter. I pulled out the card and slid it toward her. "I need to speak to the branch manager," I said. My voice was raspy, but it still carried the weight of a man who was used to giving orders. Sarah looked at the card. She looked at me. She typed the account number into her computer. I watched her face. First, there was boredom. Then, there was confusion. Finally, there was shock. Her fingers stopped moving. She looked up at me, and the polite mask fell away. She swallowed hard. "1 moment, please, Mr. Vance," she stammered. She picked up the phone and whispered something urgent. She did not take her eyes off me. 2 minutes later, the door to the executive offices opened. A man in a blue pinstripe suit walked out. He was walking fast. I recognized him. It was Mr. Henderson. I had done business with him for decades, but he had not seen me in years. He stopped a few feet away. He looked at my ruined suit. He looked at my tired face. He did not recoil. He nodded, a gesture of deep respect. "Mr. Vance," he said softly, "please come with me." He led me past the staring tellers and into his corner office. He closed the heavy oak door and locked it. He closed the blinds. He gestured for me to sit in one of the leather chairs. He went to a safe behind his desk. He spun the dial, Click, click, click. He pulled out a thick manila envelope. It was sealed with red wax. He placed it on the desk in front of me. He sat down and folded his hands. "Mr. Vance, I need you to listen to me very carefully," he began. "5 years ago, your wife Eleanor came to see me. She came alone. She opened this account under her maiden name. She deposited large sums of money every month. Dividends, cash gifts you had given her, returns on her own small investments." I nodded slowly. I remembered Eleanor disappearing for afternoons, saying she was going shopping or visiting friends. She was building a fortress right under my nose. Mr. Henderson continued. "She called this the emergency protocol. She gave me very specific instructions. She said that this envelope was only to be given to you if you came into the bank alone, looking distressed, and used this specific card. She made me promise," she said, "if my husband walks in here looking like a man on the run, you give him this letter, and you give him full access to the funds immediately." My throat felt tight. Eleanor. She had seen this coming. She had seen the rot in our son long before I was willing to admit it. Mr. Henderson pushed the envelope toward me. I picked it up. My hands were trembling again. I broke the wax seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper covered in Eleanor's elegant, looping handwriting. I started to read. "My dearest Robert, if you are reading this, it means my worst fears have come true. It means I am gone, and the wolves have come for you. It means our son, the boy we loved so much, has finally chosen greed over family." I had to stop. Tears blurred my vision. I wiped them away angrily and continued. "Do not blame yourself, Robert. We gave him everything, but we cannot give him a character. That is something a man must build for himself, and Jamal never built anything. I saw the way he looked at your checkbook. I saw the way Vanessa whispered in his ear. I knew that once I was not there to protect you, they would try to take everything. I know you, Robert. I know you will try to forgive him. You will try to reason with him because he is your blood. Stop. You cannot reason with a cancer. You have to cut it out. This money is your war chest. It is not for retirement. It is not for charity. It is for ammunition. I want you to use this money to hire the toughest, meanest lawyer in Atlanta. Do not hire the nice family attorney we used for the wills. Hire a shark. Hire someone who will burn the earth to protect you. You built an empire, Robert. Do not let them steal it. Fight them. Fight for your dignity. Fight for the legacy we built together. I love you, my stubborn bricklayer. Now dry your eyes and go to war. Love, Eleanor." I lowered the letter. The silence in the room was heavy. I looked at Mr. Henderson. He was watching me with a mixture of pity and admiration. "She knew," I whispered. "She knew everything. She was a brilliant woman," Mr. Henderson said. "She also left instructions for a wire transfer. She said that if you activated the protocol, I was to transfer a retainer fee immediately to a specific law firm. She did her research, Mr. Vance. She picked the firm of Olivia Price." I looked up sharply. Olivia Price. The name was legendary in Atlanta. They called her the Iron Lady. She was the most expensive, most aggressive asset protection attorney in the state. She did not take losing cases. She ate people like Jamal for breakfast. "Do it," I said. My voice was no longer raspy. It was cold. It was hard. "Transfer the retainer." Mr. Henderson nodded. "Consider it done. Is there anything else you need?" I stood up. I looked at my reflection in the glass of the window. I saw the mud on my suit. I saw the exhaustion in my eyes. But beneath that, I saw something else. I saw the man who had come to this city with $20 in a dream. I saw the fighter Eleanor had fallen in love with. "Yes," I said. "I need to make a withdrawal. I need $5,000 in cash to buy a new suit. If I'm going to see Olivia Price, I need to look like Robert Vance." Mr. Henderson smiled, a genuine smile this time. He opened his drawer and began to count out the bills. I took the money. I put Eleanor's letter in my inside pocket, right next to my heart. I walked out of that office and back into the lobby. The security guard was still there. He watched me as I walked toward the exit. This time, he did not look at me with judgment. He looked at me with confusion. Because I was walking differently now. I wasn't running away anymore. I was marching. The war had begun, and thanks to Eleanor, I had the first victory. An hour later, I stood in front of a three-way mirror in an upscale men's store. The homeless man from the motel was gone. In his place stood Robert Vance. I was wearing a charcoal gray Italian wool suit, a crisp white shirt, and a silk tie that cost more than my first car. I had shaved in the store's restroom. I had combed my hair. The dark circles were still under my eyes, but they no longer looked like weakness. They looked like experience. I took a cab to the Alliance Center, a skyscraper that pierced the clouds in the heart of the financial district. I knew this building well. My company had poured the concrete for the foundation 20 years ago. I remembered standing in the mud, directing the mixers. Now I was taking the high-speed elevator to the 45th floor to save what I had built. The doors opened into a lobby that smelled of expensive leather and intimidation. A receptionist looked up. Before she could ask my name, a woman appeared from a hallway. She was striking. She was about 50 years old, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and eyes that looked like flint. She wore a suit that looked like armor. "Mr. Vance," she said. Her voice was low and commanding. "I am Olivia Price," Mr. Henderson called. "We have been expecting you." She did not offer a handshake. She offered a nod. She led me down a corridor lined with glass walls. We entered a boardroom that overlooked the entire city. The view was breathtaking, but I did not have time for scenery. "Sit down, Robert," she said. She used my first name. It was not disrespectful. It was the way a general speaks to a soldier before a battle. She placed a tablet on the mahogany table. "Mr. Henderson briefed me on the situation," she continued. "Your late wife was a woman of foresight. She set up a retainer agreement with my firm 5 years ago. It triggers automatically upon your request. You've already paid for the best war counsel in Georgia. Now tell me, what are we up against?" I told her everything. I told her about the isolation, the missing documents, the overheard video call, the plan to declare me incompetent, the nursing home in Stone Mountain. Olivia listened without blinking. She took notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she leaned back. She took off her reading glasses. "They are amateurs," she said. "Dangerous amateurs, but amateurs. They are relying on speed and your passivity. They expect you to be confused. They expect you to be scared. They do not expect you to be sitting in my office with a nuclear launch key." She tapped the tablet. "It is time to execute the kill switch." I nodded. "Do it." She picked up the phone on the conference table. She dialed a number. She put it on speaker. "This is Olivia Price," she said. "Authorization code Alpha 9 Zulu. I am acting on behalf of Robert Vance. We are issuing an immediate revocation of all powers of attorney granted to Jamal Vance. Effective immediately. Freeze all corporate accounts. Freeze all personal lines of credit attached to the Vance estate. Flag all attempts to access the safety deposit boxes as fraudulent." I listened to her voice. It was calm, precise, deadly. On the other end of the line, bank executives were scrambling. She hung up. Then she made another call, this time to the county clerk. She filed an emergency motion to block any guardianship hearings, citing fraud and conflict of interest. In 10 minutes, she had done more damage to Jamal's plan than he could repair in 10 years. "Now," she said, turning the tablet toward me, "we need to look at the damage. While you were getting your suit, my forensic accountant started a preliminary sweep of the accounts Jamal had access to. You gave him signing authority on the operating account for household expenses." "Correct." I nodded. "I trusted him," I said quietly. "Trust is a luxury you can no longer afford," she replied. "Look at this." She slid the screen toward me. It was a spreadsheet. Rows and rows of red numbers. I put on my glasses. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. I saw withdrawals, cash advances, transfers. In the last 6 months alone, Jamal had drained over $200,000. 200,000. My heart sank. That was not grocery money. That was not renovation money. "Look at the dates," Olivia said, pointing a manicured finger at the screen. "These withdrawals spike every Friday. 5,000 here, 10,000 there. And look at the merchant names." I squinted. The names made no sense. High-end jewelers, 5-star resorts in Miami, casinos in Biloxi. He was partying, I whispered. He was gambling away my legacy while I sat in my room eating cold leftovers. "But there is something else," Olivia said. Her voice dropped an octave. "Look at this recurring payment. It happens on the 1st of every month. $3,500. I looked at the line item. The payee was listed as Luxury Lofts LLC. I frowned. "What is that?" I asked. "It is a high-end residential management company," Olivia explained. "They manage luxury condos in Midtown." I shook my head. "That makes no sense. Jamal lives in the estate. Why is he paying rent on a condo?" Olivia looked at me. Her eyes softened for just a fraction of a second. "Robert," she said gently, "men like your son do not rent luxury condos for storage. They rent them for people." I felt the blood drain from my face. "People? You mean a woman?" I asked. My voice trembled. "It is a possibility we have to consider," she said. "We have launched a full investigation. I have a private investigator heading to that address right now. If your son is using corporate funds to maintain a secondary residence for a third party, that is not just adultery. That is embezzlement. That is tax fraud. That is a felony." I sat back in the heavy leather chair. I felt sick. Jamal had a wife. He had children, my grandchildren, and he was stealing from me to keep a secret life. "Vanessa," I whispered. "Does she know?" Olivia shrugged. "She is a co-conspirator in the plan to lock you up, Robert. Maybe she knows and doesn't care as long as the money keeps flowing, or maybe she is just as blind as you were." The words stung, but they were true. I had been blind. I had refused to see the snake in my own garden. Olivia stood up. She walked to the window and looked out at the city. "We have stopped the bleeding, Robert," she said. "Jamal is going to try to use his credit card in about an hour, and it is going to be declined. He is going to try to transfer money to pay his lawyer, and the account will be locked. He is going to panic. And when men like him panic, they make mistakes." She turned back to me. "But we need more than just financial records. We need proof of the conspiracy. We need to know exactly what they plan to do to you. My investigator is good. If there is dirt, he will find it." I looked at the spreadsheet one last time. I looked at the name of my son next to the words, "unauthorized withdrawal." I felt something inside me break. It was the last thread of hope that this was all a misunderstanding. It was not a misunderstanding. It was a heist, and the victim was his own father. I looked up at Olivia. "Burn him," I said. I did not recognize my own voice. It sounded like gravel. "Find out who lives in that condo," I said. "Find out everything. If he wants to play games with my life, I am going to destroy his game board." Olivia nodded. She sat back down and picked up her pen. "We are just getting started, Mr. Vance. By the time we are done, your son will wish he had never learned to sign his name." That evening, I checked into the corporate apartment Olivia had arranged for me. It was in a high-rise in Midtown, a sterile box of glass and steel furnished with beige sofas and abstract art that meant nothing. It was clean. It was safe. But it was cold. It felt like a bunker. I sat by the window and watched the headlights of cars moving like blood cells through the arteries of the city. I wondered if Jamal was looking for me. I wondered if he was worried or just angry that his ATM had walked out the door. At 8 o'clock, the buzzer rang. It was Olivia. She was not alone. A man was with her. He was thick-set with a buzz cut and eyes that looked like they had seen the worst of humanity and stopped caring. He wore a cheap windbreaker that clashed with the luxury of the building. "Robert, this is Mike Miller," Olivia said as she stepped inside. "He is the investigator I told you about. He has been busy." Mike did not offer to shake my hand. He just nodded and walked to the dining table. He carried a heavy leather satchel. He unbuckled it slowly. The sound of the brass buckle clicking open echoed in the empty room like a gunshot. "Mr. Vance, I am going to show you some things that are going to hurt," Mike said. His voice was gravelly and flat. "But you need to see them to understand the enemy you are fighting." I sat down opposite him. I told him I was ready. I thought I was ready. I was not. Mike pulled out a stack of high-resolution photographs. He fanned them out on the glass table like a dealer laying down a winning hand of poker. The first photo showed a modern building with a glass facade, the Luxury Lofts, the same name from the bank statement. The next photo showed a black BMW exiting the parking garage. It was Jamal's car, the car I paid for. But Jamal was not alone. In the passenger seat sat a woman. She was young, very young, maybe 25. She had long blonde hair and was laughing. Her hand was resting on Jamal's knee. I felt a wave of nausea rise in my throat. "Who is she?" I asked. "Her name is Tiffany," Mike said. "She is an aspiring model and social media influencer. Your son has been paying the rent on her penthouse for 6 months. He bought her a Mercedes last week. He pays for her gym membership, her clothes, her trips. Mike slid another photo across the table. It showed Jamal and Tiffany sitting at an outdoor cafe. They were holding hands. Jamal was looking at her with a look I had not seen on his face in years. He looked adoring. He looked happy. It made me sick. He has a wife, I whispered. He has children. Jordan and Maya are waiting for him to come home to read them bedtime stories, and he is out buying sports cars for a stranger. He is living 2 lives, Mr. Vance, Mike said, and he is funding both of them with your money. That is why he was so desperate for the conservatorship. He was burning the candle at both ends and running out of cash. He needed full control of your estate to keep this house of cards from collapsing. I looked at the photo of my son. He looked so confident, so arrogant. He thought he was untouchable. He thought his father was just a senile old bank vault waiting to be cracked open. But that is not the worst part, Olivia interrupted. Her voice was unusually soft. She put a hand on my shoulder. Mike found something else, something much darker. Mike reached back into his satchel. This time, he pulled out a tablet. We managed to clone the phone of your brother-in-law, Terrence, Mike explained. He has poor digital security. We got access to his text messages, specifically the thread between him and his sister. Your daughter-in-law, Vanessa. I stiffened. Vanessa and Terrence, the dynamic duo of my destruction. Read the messages from 2 days ago, Mike said, pushing the tablet toward me. I put on my reading glasses. My hands shook as I held the device. The screen glowed with blue and gray speech bubbles. I read the first message from Vanessa. He is still refusing to sign the checks. He is getting suspicious. We are running out of time. Then the reply from Terrence. Don't worry, sis. The legal route is safer. Once we get the judge to sign off on the dementia claim, he is finished. Vanessa replied. But what if the judge asks for a second opinion? The old man is sharp. If he talks to a doctor, he might pass the test. I held my breath. They knew. They knew I was not sick. They knew it was all a lie. Then I read the next message from Terrence. It made my blood turn to ice. Then we go to Plan B. Old people have accidents all the time. A fall down the stairs. The wrong dose of medication. It happens. Nature just needs a little push. I dropped the tablet on the table with a clatter. Nature just needs a little push. I stared at Olivia. They were talking about killing me. They weren't just going to lock me up, I said. My voice was barely a whisper. They were going to murder me. Olivia nodded grimly. That is what it looks like, Robert. Conspiracy to commit murder. Terrence is an ex-con. He is desperate for money. Vanessa is terrified of losing her lifestyle. And Jamal, she paused. Jamal is on the thread too, Mike said. He tapped the screen and scrolled down. There was a message from Jamal's number. It was short. Just make sure it looks clean. I can't have any questions from the insurance company. I felt like the room was spinning. I gripped the edge of the table to keep from falling out of my chair. My son, my own flesh and blood. The boy I taught to ride a bike. The boy I held when he scraped his knee. He had authorized my death. He had treated it like a business transaction. Just make sure it looks clean. I closed my eyes. I saw Ellen's face. I thanked God she was not here to see this. It would have killed her. It would have shattered her heart into a million pieces. I am done, I said. I opened my eyes. The tears were gone. In their place was a cold, hard rage. It was a feeling I had not felt since I was a young man fighting for scraps in the construction yards. It was the feeling of survival. I looked at the photos of Jamal laughing with his mistress. I looked at the text messages plotting my murder. These people are not my family, I said. They are predators, and I am done being the prey. Olivia sat down next to me. This changes everything, Robert, she said. This is no longer a civil dispute over assets. This is a criminal case. We have enough here to put Terrence and Vanessa away for a long time. And Jamal? I asked. Olivia hesitated. Proving he knew the specific details of a murder plot might be harder without more context. But we have him on fraud. We have him on embezzlement. And once the police squeeze Terrence, he will flip. Guys like Terrence always flip to save their own skin. He will give up Jamal in a heartbeat. I looked at the city lights outside. Somewhere out there, Jamal was probably panicking because his credit cards had stopped working. He did not know that was the least of his problems. He did not know that a storm was coming. A storm named Robert Vance. Mike, I said, turning to the investigator, can you get copies of all of this? Every photo, every text. I want it all documented. I already have 3 backups, Mr. Vance, Mike said. One is in a safe deposit box, one is on an encrypted server, and one is right here. Good, I said. I stood up and walked to the window. I saw my reflection in the glass. I looked old, I looked tired, but I looked alive, and as long as I was alive, I was dangerous. Olivia, I said without turning around, when do we drop the hammer? Olivia stood up and gathered her papers. Tomorrow morning, she said. They are going to try to file the missing person report. They are going to try to spin the narrative. We need to be ready to counterpunch. Let them file it, I said. Let them tell the world I am missing, because the Robert Vance they knew is missing. He is gone, and the man who is coming back is someone they have never met before. While I was sitting in that cold apartment building a war council, my son and his wife were celebrating my demise at the Piedmont Driving Club. It was Sunday brunch, the kind of event where Atlanta's elite go to see and be seen. I learned later from the valet, who had been an employee of mine for years, exactly how the scene played out. It gives me no pleasure to recount it, but it is necessary to understand how quickly the house of cards collapses when you remove the foundation. Jamal and Vanessa were holding court at a center table. They were drinking champagne. They were laughing. They looked like the perfect couple. They were telling their friends that I had taken a sudden trip to Europe for my health. They were lying with smiles on their faces while they spent money they did not earn. They thought I was wandering the streets or lying in a ditch somewhere. They thought the empire was finally theirs. Then the bill arrived. It was a small black leather folder, but it carried the weight of reality. The total was over $400. Jamal did not even look at it. He casually slid his black Amex card inside. It was the card attached to the primary Vance estate account, the card that had no limit, the card he used to buy his mistress diamond earrings. The waiter took the folder and walked away. He returned 2 minutes later. He was not smiling. He leaned down and whispered so the other guests would not hear. "Sir, I am afraid the card was declined." Jamal laughed. It was a loud, arrogant laugh. "That is impossible," he said. "Run it again. It is probably just a chip error." "I ran it 3 times, sir," the waiter said, his voice remaining professional but firm. "The machine says refer to issuer. That usually means the account has been frozen." The smile vanished from Jamal's face. He could feel the eyes of the room on him. He pulled out his wallet. He took out his personal Visa. Declined. He took out the company expense card. Declined. He took out Vanessa's card. Declined. Every single source of funds had been severed. The silence at the table was deafening. The people at the next table stopped eating to watch. Jamal Vance, the prince of the city, could not pay for his eggs Benedict. He had to call Vanessa's brother, Terrence, to come down and pay the bill with cash. Terrence arrived 20 minutes later, looking angry and out of place in his tracksuit. The humiliation was absolute, but it was just the appetizer. They walked out to the valet stand, desperate to leave the scene of their embarrassment. Jamal handed his ticket to the attendant. "Bring around the BMW," he snapped. "And hurry up." The valet, a young man named Marcus whom I had hired myself, looked at the ticket and then looked at Jamal. He did not move. "I am sorry, Mr. Vance," Marcus said. "I cannot retrieve that vehicle." "What do you mean you cannot retrieve it?" Jamal shouted. His face was turning a deep shade of red. "A recovery team came for it 10 minutes ago," Marcus explained calmly. "They had a court order and a fleet management directive from Vance Construction. They said the vehicle was reported as misappropriated company property. They towed it, sir." Misappropriated. The word hung in the air like smoke. Jamal pulled out his phone to call the police, to call his lawyer, to call anyone. But his phone had no signal, service suspended by the carrier. They were stranded. They had to call a regular taxi because the Uber app was linked to the frozen credit cards. They rode in silence all the way back to the estate, the anger radiating off them like heat. They thought the worst was over. They thought they could just go home, regroup, and figure out a way to fix the glitch. They were wrong. The taxi dropped them off at the front gate of the mansion. Jamal punched the code into the security keypad. 1985, his birth year. The light on the pad flashed red. Access denied. He punched it again, harder this time. Access denied. He tried the backup code. Access denied. The heavy iron gates did not move an inch. They were locked out. They stood there in their expensive brunch clothes, sweating in the humid Georgia afternoon, staring at the home they had tried to steal from me. That is when the panic truly set in. This was not a banking error. This was not a glitch. This was a siege. Jamal realized that I was not the confused old man he thought I was. He realized that the sleeping giant had woken up. Vanessa started to cry. This time the tears were real. They were tears of fear. "What are we going to do?" she wailed. "We have no money. We have no car. We have no house." Jamal looked at her. His eyes were wild. "There is only one thing we can do," he said. "We have to find him. We have to find him and force him to undo this." They walked to the nearest police station. It was a mile away. They walked in the heat, blistering their feet in their designer shoes. They walked into the precinct and put on the performance of their lives. "Officer," Jamal said, leaning on the counter and trying to look like a heartbroken son. "We need to report a missing person. My father, Robert Vance. He has advanced dementia. He wandered off in the middle of the night. We are terrified for his safety. He does not know what he is doing. He is confusing reality." Vanessa grabbed the officer's hand. "Please, you have to find him. He is sick. He might hurt himself or someone else." They filed the report. They signed their names to a lie. They described me as frail, confused, and incompetent. They wanted the police to hunt me down, pick me up, and hand me back to them so they could shove me into a facility and take back control of the money. They thought they were being clever. They thought they were taking control of the narrative. But they did not know that across town, Olivia Price was already drafting the response. They did not know that by filing a false police report, they had just handed us the final weapon we needed to destroy them. They had walked right into the trap, and the steel jaws were about to snap shut. My son did not stop at the police station. He knew that a police report was just a piece of paper buried in a bureaucracy. He needed an army. He needed public pressure. So he went to the one place where lies travel faster than the truth. He went to the internet. That evening I sat in the safe house with Olivia and Mike. We were eating takeout Chinese food in silence when Mike's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and frowned. He placed the phone in the center of the table and turned up the volume. It was a live video on Facebook. Jamal was sitting on a park bench. The lighting was perfect. He looked disheveled just enough to garner sympathy, but still handsome enough to be credible. He was looking directly into the camera lens with wet eyes. "Please help me," he began. His voice cracked with practiced emotion. "My name is Jamal Vance. My father is Robert Vance. He is a good man, a great man, but he is sick. He has been battling dementia for months, and yesterday he disappeared." I felt the blood boil in my veins. I clenched my fists so hard my fingernails dug into my palms. He continued, "We believe he is being manipulated. There are people out there, predatory lawyers and scammers, who prey on the elderly. We think someone has convinced him to leave his family. Someone is trying to isolate him to steal his money. Dad, if you are watching this, please come home. Vanessa and the kids miss you. We just want you safe. We love you." He wiped a tear from his cheek. It was a perfect performance, Hollywood quality. The comments started rolling in on the side of the screen. "Poor guy. Praying for you. I hope they find the dad. These lawyers are evil. People who didn't know me, people who didn't know the truth, were judging me. They saw a loving son searching for his senile father. They did not see the man who stole my money to buy a Mercedes for his mistress." I stood up. I could not watch anymore. I felt like I was suffocating. "That is a lie," I shouted at the empty room. "He is lying to the whole world. He is painting me as a victim so he can play the hero." I reached for my phone. I wanted to call the news station. I wanted to comment on the video. I wanted to scream the truth until my throat was raw. "I am going to call him," I said. "I am going to tell everyone what he really is." Olivia stood up faster than I expected. She grabbed my wrist. Her grip was iron. "No," she said. Her voice was sharp. "You do not touch that phone, Robert." I looked at her. "But he is destroying my reputation. He is making me look like a fool. He is baiting you," Olivia said calmly. She did not let go of my wrist. "He wants you to react. He wants you to get angry and post a rant online. He wants you to sound unhinged. If you attack him in the comments, you prove his point. You look like the confused, angry old man he claims you are." She guided me back to the chair. "Sit down, Robert. We do not fight in the comments section. We do not fight on Facebook Live. We fight in the courtroom where facts matter more than tears. I sat down. I was shaking with rage. But what do we do? I asked. Do we just let him lie? No, Olivia said. We change the battlefield. Right now, Jamal and Vanessa are a united front. They are two rats in a corner fighting for survival. They are dangerous because they are together. So we are going to break them apart. She looked at Mike. Is the package ready? Mike nodded. He tapped his laptop. I have the file ready to go. We have the photos of Jamal and Tiffany leaving the condo. We have the receipts for the jewelry. We have the text messages where Jamal tells Tiffany that his wife is a bore and that he is only staying with her for the inheritance. I felt a cold shiver. I had not seen those specific texts. My son was not just a thief. He was cruel. Olivia looked at me. Robert, this is going to be ugly. We are going to take the evidence of Jamal's infidelity and we are going to send it directly to Vanessa, not to the public, just to her. Why? I asked. Because Vanessa is greedy, Olivia explained. She is in on the plot because she wants the money. But she is also a proud woman. She thinks she is the queen of the castle. When she finds out that Jamal has been spending her future inheritance on a 25-year-old model, she is not going to care about the plan anymore. She is going to want blood. Divide and conquer, Mike added. If they are fighting each other, they cannot fight us. I thought about Vanessa. I thought about how she looked at me with contempt. I thought about how she plotted to kill me. She deserved this. They both did. Do it, I said. Mike typed a few commands on his keyboard. I am sending it to her private email and to her cell phone, Mike said, using an anonymous untraceable number. Subject line, where your money is really going. He pressed enter. The message was sent. Now we wait, Olivia said. She poured herself a glass of water. It won't take long. I looked back at the tablet. The video had ended. Jamal was probably high-fiving himself right now. He probably thought he had won the public relations war. He thought he was the smartest man in the room. He did not know that we had just tossed a hand grenade into his living room. I sat back and watched the city lights. I imagined Vanessa's phone buzzing in her purse. I imagined her picking it up, expecting a message from her lawyer or her brother. I imagined her unlocking the screen. I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and sadness. I was destroying my son's marriage. I was destroying his life. But he had fired the first shot. He had tried to take my life. Now I was just taking away his shield. The silence in the room was heavy. We were 3 hunters waiting for the trap to snap. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then Mike's computer pinged. He had a program monitoring the police scanner and emergency services. We have a 911 call, Mike said. He leaned into the screen. Address is the Vance estate in Buckhead. Caller reports a domestic disturbance. Female screaming. Sounds of glass breaking. Olivia smiled. It was a cold, terrifying smile. Boom, she whispered. I closed my eyes. I could almost hear the screaming from here. The alliance was broken. The rats were turning on each other. And tomorrow, when the smoke cleared, I would be standing there waiting for them. The sun rose the next morning on a shattered kingdom. The police report filed that night described a domestic disturbance that woke the neighbors 3 blocks away. A vase worth $5,000 had been thrown through a window. Clothes had been set on fire in the driveway. Jamal had fled the scene before the officers arrived, running into the night like a coward to sleep in his car because he had no credit card to book a hotel room. Vanessa remained in the mansion alone. She sat in the wreckage of her marriage, surrounded by the debris of her rage. But Vanessa was a survivor. She was a woman who calculated her moves like a chess player, even when the board was flipped over. She realized that Jamal was a sinking ship. He was broke. He was exposed. He was useless to her now. So she did exactly what Olivia predicted. She tried to jump to the only life raft left. At 10 in the morning my phone rang. It was Olivia. She is here, Olivia said. Her voice was calm. She called my office at 7 a.m., begging for a meeting. She says she has information that can help you. She says she wants to cut a deal. I felt a cold sneer form on my face. A deal. After she tried to lock me away, after she plotted to kill me. Let her in, I said. I will be there in 20 minutes. I arrived at the law firm and entered through the private back entrance. Olivia put me in the adjacent office. It had a one-way mirror that looked into the main conference room. I could see everything. I could hear everything. But she could not see me. I watched Vanessa walk in. She looked nothing like the arrogant woman who had evicted me from my own living room just days ago. She wore no makeup, her eyes were swollen, she was wearing a simple tracksuit, trying to look humble, trying to look harmless. She sat down opposite Olivia. She refused the offer of water. She twisted her hands in her lap. "Mrs. Vance," Olivia began, keeping her tone professional. "You asked for this meeting. You said it was urgent. I am listening." Vanessa took a shaky breath. She looked up, and for a second, I saw the flash of the actress I knew so well. "I want to help Robert," she said. Her voice trembled perfectly. "I found out last night what Jamal has been doing. The cheating, the stealing, the secret apartment. I had no idea. I swear to God I had no idea. I watched from behind the glass. Liar. She knew about the money. Maybe she didn't know about the mistress, but she knew about the fraud. She spent the money just as fast as he stole it." She continued, gaining confidence. "Jamal is a monster. He manipulated me. He told me Robert was sick. He told me we had to take control of the estate to protect Robert from himself. I only went along with the conservatorship because I thought I was helping the family. But now I see the truth." She leaned forward. Her eyes narrowed. "I can testify against him. I can give you the bank records he keeps in his private safe. I can give you the passwords to his laptop. I can hand him to you on a silver platter." "And what do you want in return?" Olivia asked. She did not look impressed. "I want immunity," Vanessa said quickly. "I want a written agreement that Robert will not sue me. And I want to keep the house. It is the only home my children have ever known. If I give you Jamal, I want the deed to the Buckhead estate transferred to my name." I felt a laugh bubble up in my chest. A dark, bitter laugh. She wanted the mansion. After everything she had done, she still thought she was entitled to the crown. She was willing to sell her husband down the river to keep her walk-in closet. Olivia leaned back in her chair. She tapped her pen on the table. "That is a very generous offer, Mrs. Vance," Olivia said. "But there is just one problem." "What problem?" Vanessa asked. "We do not need your help to destroy Jamal," Olivia said. "We already have everything we need. And we definitely do not need your lies." Vanessa stiffened. "What lies? I am the victim here." That was my cue. I opened the door connecting the offices. I stepped into the room. Vanessa froze. She looked at me like she was seeing a ghost. I was wearing my new suit. I was clean-shaven. I stood tall. I did not look like the frail old man she had described to the police. I looked like the CEO of Vance Construction. "Hello, Vanessa," I said. She stood up. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Robert, thank God you are okay. I was so worried. Jamal told me you ran away and—" "Stop it," I cut her off. My voice boomed in the quiet room. "Stop the performance. The curtains are closed." I walked to the table and stood next to Olivia. I looked down at the woman who had lived in my house for 10 years. The woman I had treated like a daughter. "You say you didn't know," I said. "You say you were manipulated." I pulled out the tablet Mike had given me. I tapped the screen. "Then explain this," I said. I pressed play. The audio was clear. It was a voice note retrieved from her brother Terrence's cloud backup. It was Vanessa's voice. There was no mistaking it. "Terrence, the old man is becoming a problem. He is asking questions about the bank statements. We need to speed up the timeline. If the doctor can't sign the papers by Friday, we need to go with Plan B. Make it look like a fall. The stairs in the back are steep. Just get it done." The silence that followed was absolute. Vanessa went pale. All the color drained from her face until she looked like a wax statue. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "That is you," I said, "discussing my murder. Discussing pushing me down the stairs of the house I built." Vanessa shook her head. "No, that is manipulated. That is not me. I never." "Save it for the judge," Olivia interrupted. "We have the metadata. We have the timestamps. We have the text thread that goes with it. You are not a witness, Vanessa. You are a co-conspirator in a plot to commit capital murder." Vanessa collapsed back into her chair. The fight went out of her. She realized the trap had snapped shut. I looked at her with pity. Not for her, but for my grandchildren who had her as a mother. "You wanted a deal," I said. "Here is the deal." I reached into my jacket pocket. I pulled out a thick envelope. I tossed it onto the table in front of her. It landed with a heavy thud. "Those are eviction papers," I said. You have 24 hours to vacate my property. You will take your personal clothes and nothing else. You will not touch the furniture. You will not touch the artwork. You will not touch the jewelry I bought you. You will leave my house exactly as you found it when you walked in with nothing." Vanessa looked at the envelope. She started to cry. This time, they were tears of total defeat. "But where will I go?" she sobbed. "I have nowhere to go." "You have a brother," I said, cold as ice. "Maybe Terrence has a spare room." "Oh wait, Terrence was arrested an hour ago. So I guess you are on your own." I turned my back on her. I walked toward the door. "Get out of my sight, Vanessa," I said, "before I call the police and have you escorted out in handcuffs right now." She grabbed the envelope and ran. She ran out of the conference room. She ran out of the office. She ran out of my life. I stood by the window and watched her exit the building onto the street below. She looked small. She looked lost. Olivia stood next to me. "One down," she said. "One to go," I replied. My son was next. And unlike Vanessa, he would not run. He would fight. Because he was a Vance, and he was too arrogant to believe he could lose. But he was about to learn a lesson I should have taught him when he was a child. Actions have consequences, and the bill was finally due. The day of the hearing arrived 3 days later. The Fulton County Probate Court smelled of floor wax and old paper. It was a place where lives were usually dismantled quietly, where families fought over scraps of dignity in hushed tones. But today, the air felt electric. Everyone knew this was not just a competency hearing. It was a reckoning. I sat at the mahogany table next to Olivia. I kept my back straight. I kept my hands folded on the table. I did not look at the other side of the room, but I could feel him. Jamal was sitting there with a court-appointed lawyer because he could no longer afford the high-priced defense team he wanted. He was wearing a dark blue suit that was slightly wrinkled. He looked tired. He looked like a man who had not slept in days. But when the judge entered, he put on his mask. He slumped his shoulders. He lowered his head. He transformed instantly into the grieving, burdened son who only wanted to save his father from himself. It was a performance that would have won an award if the stakes were not my life. The bailiff called the court to order. The Honorable Judge Hawkins presided. She was a stern woman with reading glasses perched on the end of her nose and eyes that had seen every lie a human being could tell. Jamal's lawyer stood up first. He was a young man, nervous, clearly out of his depth against Olivia Price. "Your Honor," he began, his voice shaky. "We are here today to request an emergency conservatorship for Mr. Robert Vance. As we have outlined in our petition, Mr. Vance has shown a rapid cognitive decline. He has been found wandering the streets at night in the rain. He has been spending erratic sums of money. He has become paranoid and aggressive toward his family. My client, his only son, is simply trying to protect his father's estate and his physical well-being." Jamal nodded solemnly from his seat. He dabbed his eyes with a handkerchief. I watched him and felt a strange detachment. This was the boy I had taught to fish. This was the boy I had carried on my shoulders at the zoo. And now, he was sitting 5 feet away, trying to erase my existence. The judge looked at the file. She turned a page. She looked over her glasses at me. "Mr. Vance," she said, "do you understand why you are here?" I stood up. Olivia had told me to let her do the talking, but I needed to answer this myself. "Yes, Your Honor," I said. My voice was clear. It did not shake. "I am here because my son wants to steal the company I built with my bare hands, and he needs me to be legally dead to do it." Jamal jumped up. "That is not true," he shouted. "Dad, please. You are sick. You do not know what you are saying." "Sit down, Mr. Vance," the judge snapped. Her gavel hit the wood with a crack like a gunshot. "You will speak when spoken to." Jamal sat down, his face flushing red. Olivia stood up. She moved with the grace of a predator. "Your Honor," she said smoothly, "the petitioner claims my client is incompetent. They claim he has dementia. They claim he cannot manage his own affairs. We are not here to argue with emotions. We are here to argue with facts." She picked up a thick binder and handed it to the bailiff. "I present to the court the results of 3 independent psychological evaluations conducted over the last 48 hours. One by the head of neurology at Emory Hospital, one by a court-certified forensic psychiatrist, and one by Mr. Vance's personal physician of 20 years. The judge took the binder. She opened it. She read the summary. Her eyebrows went up. Olivia continued. You will see, Your Honor, that Mr. Vance scored a perfect 30 out of 30 on the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. He showed 0 signs of dementia, 0 signs of Alzheimer's. In fact, the neurologist noted that Mr. Vance possesses the recall and cognitive processing speed of a man half his age. The courtroom was silent. Jamal's lawyer started shuffling his papers, looking for a rebuttal that did not exist. But we do not just rely on doctors, Olivia said. She turned and looked at me. Mr. Vance, would you please take the stand? I walked to the witness box. I swore to tell the truth. I sat down and looked at my son. He refused to meet my gaze. He was staring at the table, his leg bouncing nervously under the chair. Mr. Vance, Olivia asked, the petitioner claims you are confused about your finances, that you are spending money erratically. Can you tell the court the current status of your assets? I leaned into the microphone. I certainly can, I said. As of this morning, the operating capital of Vance Construction is $12,450,000. My personal savings account has a balance of $3 million. My stock portfolio is up 4% this quarter. And do you know where your money goes? Olivia asked. I do, I said. I looked directly at Jamal. I know exactly where it goes. For example, on February 14th of this year, I did not spend $5,000 at Cartier Jewelers. My son did. He bought a diamond tennis bracelet. He told his wife it was for her, but the receipt shows it was resized for a much smaller wrist. Jamal's head snapped up. His eyes went wide. I continued. On March 3rd, I did not spend $8,000 at the Ritz-Carlton in Miami. My son did. He booked the presidential suite for a weekend. I was at home eating soup alone. On April 1st, I did not withdraw $10,000 in cash from the corporate expense account. My son did. He used it to pay off a gambling debt at a private poker game in Buckhead. The courtroom was buzzing now. The judge was leaning forward, her eyes locked on me. I continued, my voice rising just a fraction. A confused man forgets things, Your Honor. A senile man loses track of the details. But I remember. I remember every single dollar he stole from me. I remember every lie he told me. And I remember the night I stood outside his door and heard him plotting to lock me away in a budget facility so he could keep living like a king on money he never earned. Objection, Jamal's lawyer squeaked. This is irrelevant. Overruled, the judge said sharply. She looked at Jamal. Her face was hard. Mr. Vance has recalled specific dates, amounts, and locations, the judge said. That does not sound like the testimony of a man suffering from dementia. That sounds like the testimony of a victim. She closed the file. She took off her glasses. She looked at Jamal with an expression of pure disdain. Mr. Jamal Vance, this court finds your petition to be not only without merit but frivolous and malicious. You have wasted the court's time. You have attempted to weaponize the legal system to defraud your father. Jamal stood up. But, Your Honor, you do not understand. He is lying. He is... I said, sit down. The judge roared. Jamal collapsed into his chair. He looked small. He looked defeated. The judge turned back to me. Her expression softened. Mr. Robert Vance, this court declares you to be fully competent. You retain full control of your person, your estate, and your destiny. The temporary guardianship is denied with prejudice. She banged the gavel. But she wasn't finished. Furthermore, she added, looking at the papers Olivia had provided, based on the testimony regarding theft and fraud presented here today, I am referring this transcript immediately to the district attorney's office. This is no longer a probate matter. This is a criminal matter. The color drained from Jamal's face. He looked at his lawyer, but the lawyer was already packing his briefcase, trying to distance himself from the sinking ship. I stood up. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, a weight I had been carrying for months. I had my life back. I had my name back. Olivia smiled at me. We did it, she whispered. I looked at Jamal one last time. He was sitting alone at the table, his head in his hands. He was crying, but I knew they were tears of self-pity. He wasn't crying because he lost his father. He was crying because he lost the money. I walked out of the courtroom with my head held high. The bailiff opened the heavy doors for me. I stepped out into the hallway, breathing the air of a free man. But I knew the war wasn't over. The civil battle was won, but the criminal storm was just beginning. And waiting for us in the hallway were 2 police officers, their handcuffs gleaming under the fluorescent lights. The heavy wooden doors of the courtroom swung shut behind me, muffling the sound of Jamal sobbing into his hands. I stood in the hallway and took a deep breath. The air tasted sterile, recycled, but to me, it tasted like victory. I adjusted my cuffs. I looked at Olivia. She gave me a small, tired nod. We had won the battle, but the war had one final casualty to claim. I looked down the long marble corridor. 2 police officers were not looking at me. They were looking past me. They were focused on a man sitting on a wooden bench near the elevators. It was Terrence, Vanessa's brother. He was waiting for the news. He was waiting for Jamal to walk out and tell him that the old man was finished, that the assets were secured, that the payday had arrived. He was checking his phone, probably looking at expensive cars he planned to buy with my money. He did not see the officers approaching until they were 5 feet away. "Terrence Williams," one officer said. His voice echoed in the hallway. Terrence jumped. He looked left. He looked right. He saw the uniforms. He saw the handcuffs on the officer's belt. Panic, raw and ugly, twisted his face. "Stand up and put your hands behind your back," the officer ordered. Terrence scrambled backward, tripping over his own feet. "No, no way. I didn't do anything. I am just here waiting for family. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and elder abuse," the officer said. He did not shout. He stated it like he was reading a grocery list. Terrence's eyes went wide. He looked at me. He saw me standing there, alive, competent, and watching him. He realized in that split second that the game was rigged. He realized that Vanessa had failed. He realized that the accident he had texted about was never going to happen. He started to scream. It wasn't a scream of fear. It was a scream of betrayal. "It wasn't me," he yelled as the officer spun him around and slammed him against the wall. "It was Vanessa. She told me to do it. She sent the texts. She is the one who wanted him dead." He was flipping, just like Olivia said he would. He didn't even wait to get to the station. He was selling his own sister to save his skin right there in the hallway of the Fulton County Courthouse. "I have the messages," Terrence shouted as the cuffs clicked shut. "I kept everything. Jamal knew too. Jamal paid me. Do not put this on me." Just then, the courtroom doors opened again. Jamal stepped out. He looked wrecked. His tie was loosened. His eyes were red. He walked out expecting to find a quiet place to call his wife, to try and salvage the debris of his life. Instead, he walked straight into a nightmare. He saw Terrence pinned against the wall. He heard Terrence screaming his name. He saw the police. Jamal froze. He looked like a deer staring down the barrel of a rifle. He took a step back, but there was nowhere to go. A detective in a plain gray suit stepped out from behind a pillar. He had been waiting. He walked up to Jamal. He held up a piece of paper. "Jamal Vance," the detective said. Jamal shook his head. "No, no, please. My father. We just had a hearing. It was a misunderstanding." The detective ignored him. "We have a warrant for your arrest. Your brother-in-law just confessed to the conspiracy. We have the bank records. We have the texts. It is over." Jamal looked at the detective. Then he looked at Terrence being dragged away. And then slowly he turned his eyes to me. I was standing 10 feet away. I was not smiling. I was not gloating. I was just watching. Something in Jamal broke. The fear vanished, replaced by a sudden, hot fury. He lunged toward me. The detective grabbed his arm, but Jamal fought against the grip. He wanted to get to me. He wanted to hurt me one last time. "You did this," Jamal screamed. He was spitting the words out. "You did this to us. You set us up." I did not move. I did not flinch. "I gave you everything," Jamal shouted. His voice cracked, sounding like a petulant child. "I was your son. I was your blood. But it was never enough for you. You always made me feel small. You always made me feel like I was just an employee." He stopped struggling, but he kept shouting, his chest heaving. "You made me this way, Dad. You gave me the money, but you never gave me the respect. You made me weak because you never let me fight for anything. This is your fault. All of this is your fault." The hallway went silent. The lawyers, the clerks, the other families waiting for their hearings, everyone was watching. Jamal stood there, panting, waiting for me to break, waiting for me to apologize, waiting for me to be the father who always fixed his mistakes. I looked at him. I looked at the man who had authorized my murder because he didn't want to wait for his inheritance. I looked at the man who blamed his greed on my generosity. I walked closer. The detective tensed, ready to step in, but I held up a hand. I stopped 2 feet from my son. I looked him in the eye. I made many mistakes, Jamal, I said softly. My voice was low, but in the silence, it carried like thunder. I worked too much. I missed your ball games. I bought you cars instead of teaching you how to fix them. I take responsibility for that. Jamal sneered. He thought he had won. He thought he had guilted me. But I did not make you a criminal, I continued. My voice hardened. I did not make you a thief, and I certainly did not make you a killer. I took a step closer. I gave you opportunity. I gave you a platform that most men would kill for. I gave you the bricks to build a castle, and you used them to build a prison. Jamal opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. Do not blame the shade for blocking the sun, Jamal. You never tried to plant your own tree. You were content to eat the fruit from mine. You are not a victim. You are a parasite. And today, I am finally curing the infection. Jamal stared at me. His mouth hung open. The arrogance was gone. The anger was gone. There was only shock. He had never heard me speak like that. He had never seen me as Robert Vance, the man who crushed obstacles. He had only seen me as Dad, the man with the checkbook. I turned to the detective. Get him out of my sight. The detective nodded. He spun Jamal around. He pulled Jamal's hands behind his back. The sound of the handcuffs ratcheting shut was the loudest sound in the world. Click, click, click. Jamal did not fight anymore. He slumped. He let them lead him away. As they walked him down the corridor, past the elevators, past the staring crowds, he looked back at me one last time. He looked like a little boy again. He looked like the 5-year-old who used to wait for me at the door. Dad, he whispered. I turned away. I could not watch. I walked to the window at the end of the hall and looked out at the Atlanta skyline. I looked at the buildings I had built, concrete and steel. They were strong. They lasted. I heard the elevator ding. I heard the doors slide open and shut. I heard the silence return to the hallway. I was alone. My son was gone. My family was shattered. I had won everything, and I had lost everything. Olivia walked up beside me. She did not say a word. She just stood there, letting me have the moment. It is done, I said to the glass. Yes, she replied. It is done. I adjusted my tie. I buttoned my jacket. I had to go back to the office. I had a company to run. I had a legacy to save. I had grandchildren to protect. I was Robert Vance, and I had work to do. The handcuffs were just the beginning of the end for Jamal, but for me, the real work was just starting. I stood in the hallway of the courthouse watching the police car drive away with my son in the back seat, and I felt a heavy stone settle in my gut. I had saved my company. I had saved my life. But I had 2 innocent victims who were currently sitting in a house that was about to be seized by the bank. My grandchildren, Jordan and Maya. I turned to Olivia. I told her I needed one more favor. I needed to file for emergency custody. It was not a simple process. The state does not like to take children from their parents, even when the parents are monsters. But the evidence was overwhelming. Jamal was facing prison time. Vanessa was facing charges for conspiracy and had no fixed address after I evicted her. The judge looked at the file. She looked at the text messages where they discussed my murder as casually as ordering a pizza. She looked at me. Mr. Vance, she said, you are 68 years old. Raising 2 young children is a heavy burden. Are you sure you are up for this? I stood up straight. I looked her in the eye. Your Honor, I built this city with a shovel and a bad back. I can raise 2 children. I failed their father because I gave him too much. I will not fail them. She granted the order. That afternoon, I went to the estate with a social worker. The house was quiet. The staff had left when the paychecks bounced. Vanessa was gone. I found Jordan and Maya in the playroom. They were sitting on the floor surrounded by expensive toys they did not play with. They looked up when I entered. Their eyes were wide and scared. They knew something was wrong. They had heard the fighting. They had seen the police. Jordan, who was 10, stood up. He tried to be brave. Where is Dad? He asked. I knelt down. My knees cracked. But I did not care. I looked him in the eye. Your dad made some big mistakes, son. He has to go away for a while to fix them, and your mom needs to figure some things out too. So for now, you are coming with me. Is it going to be okay? Maya whispered. She was holding a teddy bear I had bought her when she was born. I pulled them both into a hug. I held them tight. I smelled their shampoo. I felt their small hearts beating against my chest. Yes, I said. It is going to be okay. It is going to be different. But it is going to be real. The first few months were hard. I moved them into a comfortable 4-bedroom apartment in a family-friendly neighborhood. It was not a mansion. There was no pool. There were no servants. We cooked dinner together. We cleaned up together. Jordan complained at first. He wanted his video games. He wanted his huge room. But I stood firm. We are a team, I told him, and on this team, everyone works. While I was rebuilding my family, the legal system was finishing with my son. Jamal and Terrence took plea deals. Because Terrence testified, Jamal avoided a long prison sentence, but the judge was not lenient. She gave him 18 months of probation, 500 hours of community service, and a restitution order that would make your head spin. He had to pay back every cent he stole. The court seized his assets, the BMW, the watches, the condo. It was all sold at auction. Jamal walked out of the detention center 3 months later. He was broke. He was a convicted felon. No one in the finance world would touch him. He had an MBA, but he was unemployable. He called me one night. His voice was small. "Dad," he said, "I need money. I need a place to stay." I sat in my armchair. I looked at Jordan doing his homework at the dining table. "No," I said. There was a silence on the line. "But I am your son," he pleaded. "I have nothing. I am sleeping on a friend's couch." "You have 2 hands," I said. "You have a strong back. That is more than I had when I started." I hung up. But I did not abandon him. Not completely. I made a call to an old friend of mine, a man named Big Mike who ran a concrete pouring crew on the south side of the city. I told him to hire Jamal. I told him to pay him minimum wage, and I told him if Jamal was 1 minute late, to fire him. The next week, I drove by the job site. I parked my car across the street and watched. It was 90 degrees in the shade. The humidity was thick enough to chew, and there was my son, the boy who used to wear Italian suits and drink champagne at noon. He was wearing a neon yellow vest. He was covered in gray dust. He was pushing a wheelbarrow full of wet concrete up a ramp. I saw him stop to wipe sweat from his eyes. He looked exhausted. He looked miserable. But he did not quit. He picked up the handles and kept pushing. For the first time in his life, Jamal was earning his dinner. I drove away with a lump in my throat. It hurt to see him like that. Every instinct in me wanted to write a check, to fix it, to make it easy. But I knew that would be the final nail in his coffin. The fire of the kiln is what makes the brick strong. Jamal was finally in the fire. Back at the apartment, things were changing too. Jordan and Maya were adjusting. They seemed happier, lighter. The toxicity of their parents' marriage was gone. One evening, I sat with Jordan at the chessboard. It was an old wooden set that Eleanor had given me years ago. Jordan was learning fast. He moved his knight, threatening my queen. "Check," he said with a grin. I looked at the board. It was a good move, but he had left his flank exposed. "Are you sure?" I asked. He nodded confidently. "Yes, I want to take your queen." I moved my bishop. Checkmate. Jordan's face fell. He stared at the board. He reached for his knight. "Wait," he said. "Let me move it back." I didn't see that. I gently caught his hand. "No," I said softly. "In chess, just like in life, you cannot take back a move once you let go of the piece. You have to live with the consequences." Jordan looked at me. He was angry for a second. Then he sighed. "Okay, Grandpa. Good game." He started to reset the pieces. I watched him. He was learning that losing is part of winning. He was becoming the man I should have helped his father become. I realized then that Eleanor was right. The money didn't matter. The buildings didn't matter. This mattered. This quiet moment at a kitchen table, teaching a boy how to lose with dignity so he could one day win with honor. I had lost a son to greed, but I was saving a grandson with love. And that was a trade I was willing to make every single day. It has been exactly 1 year since the night I climbed out of my window in the rain. The seasons have turned. The winter that froze my heart has finally melted into a spring I never thought I would see. I was sitting in my study yesterday looking at the brown leather clutch that saved my life. I had kept it on a shelf like a trophy, a reminder of the night I became a ghost. I decided to clean it, to put some leather conditioner on it to keep it soft. As I rubbed the cloth inside the lining, I felt something stiff, a hidden compartment behind the zipper that I had missed in my panic that first night. I pulled the small brass zipper. Inside was a second white envelope. On the front, in Eleanor's handwriting, were the words, "For the peace after the war." I sat down in my heavy leather chair. My hands did not shake this time. I was not the terrified fugitive I had been a year ago. I was Robert Vance, the patriarch of a new, smaller but stronger family. I opened the envelope. Her familiar script filled the page, and suddenly she was in the room with me again, her perfume lingering in the air. "My love," the letter began, "if you are reading this, it means you won. I never doubted you would. You are a builder, Robert. You know how to fix things that are broken, but I also know that your heart is hurting. I know you are mourning the son we lost, even though he is still alive. Do not let that pain turn you into stone. You had to break his world to save him. It was the hardest thing a father could do, but it was the most necessary." I paused to wipe a tear from my cheek. She knew. She always knew. I continued reading. "Now I have one last request. Live. Do not just exist. Do not just work. Live. Take the grandkids for ice cream. Watch the sunset. Forgive the sinner, but never hand him the weapon again. Forgiveness is for your soul, Robert, not for his bank account. Keep your boundaries high and your heart open to those who earn it. I will be waiting for you, but not yet. You have work to do. Love, Eleanor." I put the letter down. I closed my eyes and let the words sink into my marrow. Forgive the sinner, but never hand him the weapon again. She was right. I had spent 40 years building a fortune, but I had almost missed the chance to build a life. Now, things are different. I still run Vance Construction, but I'm no longer the first one in and the last one out. I leave at 5 o'clock. I don't miss dinner. I don't miss soccer games. Jordan is getting tall, his legs lanky like mine were at that age. Maya is learning to play the piano, filling the apartment with clumsy but beautiful music. The apartment is noisy and messy and full of life. It is better than the silent mansion ever was. I saw Jamal last week. I was driving past a construction site downtown, checking on a high-rise project. He was there. He was pouring concrete. He has lost 30 pounds. The softness is gone from his face. He looks older. He looks tired. He was wearing work boots that were covered in dust, boots that he bought with his own money. He saw my car. He stopped his wheelbarrow. He wiped his hands on his pants. He didn't come over to beg. He didn't look away in shame. He just nodded. A short, sharp nod of acknowledgement. I nodded back. We did not speak. We did not need to. He knows the rules now. The bank is closed. The father who enabled him is gone. But the man respects the worker. Maybe one day, years from now, when he has built his own character brick by brick, we can sit down and talk. Maybe one day he will be allowed to see his children again, once he has proven he can be a father instead of a friend. But not today. Today he has concrete to pour, and I have children to raise. I walked out onto the balcony of the apartment. The sun was setting over Atlanta, turning the glass skyscrapers into pillars of fire. I looked at the city I helped build. It is a beautiful city, but it is just concrete and steel. It is cold. It does not love you back. I turned around and looked back inside through the glass door. Jordan was laughing at something on the television. Maya was drawing a picture at the dining table. That is my empire now. That is my legacy. Not the money, not the buildings, not the name on the side of the trucks, but the truth. The truth that dignity is worth fighting for. The truth that it is never too late to start over. And the truth that sometimes you have to lose everything to find out what really matters. I touched the letter in my pocket. "Thank you, Eleanor," I whispered to the wind. "I am finally home." We often believe that love means shielding our children from the storms we weathered. But Robert's journey teaches us a harder truth. A child who never struggles is a child who never grows. By removing every obstacle, we accidentally remove their strength. True legacy isn't the inheritance you leave in a bank account, but the resilience you build in their character. Do not confuse enabling with loving. Sometimes, the greatest gift you can give someone is the dignity of their own consequences, even if it breaks your heart to watch them fall. If you believe in the power of tough love and earned respect, share this story with your friends and family. Let's start a conversation about what true legacy really means.